Hey guys, my name is Chelsea Northrup and today we'll be editing this picture. And I provided a link down below in the description where you can download the picture so that you can follow along. So you might want to pause me and go get that right now. So the first thing we're going to do is take out these water splatters. If you've taken pictures of waterfalls before, you know that there's just water and mist flying everywhere and it gets all over your lens. Let's get rid of it. You want to select your spot removal tool and you want to adjust your feathering to about 30 to 40%. And I'll show you why real quick. Learn a little something. If you have too much feathering and you select it, it leaves a halo. So you can see that it didn't really get rid of it. It leaves a halo around your spot. So I'm going to press Control Delete. If you don't do enough feathering, then it just looks like a cutout. They're really sharp edges and it doesn't blend nicely. So, like I was saying, let's do like 30, 40% and see how that works. That's crazy. So I'm going to press H and it's going to show me where it's sampled from on a rock. Good going, Lightroom. Thanks. All right. And I like to press H to hide it just to see if it did a good job. I think it could do better. I'm just going to delete this and try again. I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. And I used the right bracket key as a shortcut. So I'm going to pull it into a similar place. Like this is a shadow and the branches are going in the same direction. And if I press H, it looks natural. And the same thing here. Make my brush a bit smaller. That wasn't big enough. And again, I want to sample it from a similar area. So the shadowy spot down here looks good. Just press H so I can see. That's decent. And you just keep going like that. Just like that. That's all right. Oh, that one actually worked? Wow. When you have a spot like this, if you go down too far, you can see the edge of the photo. You can go to a spot where the water isn't moving in the right direction and then it looks kind of funky. So you want to make sure it blends naturally. And that looks good. I should also mention I'm on the Heal tool and not the Clone tool. You'll get different results if you use the wrong one or the other one. Nothing's wrong. Okay, so I think I have all of the spots out and it already looks a lot better. So I'm going to go in and just play with the exposure a bit. So the overall exposure is good, but I just want to make sure there are some whites and some shadows in there. So I'll go to my white slider, I'll press Alt while I slide, and I can see that there are already whites in there. That section's actually a bit blown out, but I don't want to bring it all the way down because if I do, the whites in the trees are also just killed and it looks so flat and muddy. You can see if I bring it up, it's brighter, it pops a bit. If I bring it down too much, it's pretty ugly. So I'm actually going to leave it just about where it was. The same thing with the blacks. I'll press Alt while I drop it down and just make sure there's a little bit of black there. And that makes it pop. I am going to add a little bit of clarity, but just a scotch, because sometimes I see things like this and it's like, chill out, that's too much. You gotta, less is more sometimes. Okay, and now I'll go to my colors, and there's a lot of green and a lot of tan, and I just like to make this kind of red tone in the rocks pop. So let me select the orange, and I'll make the hue a bit more towards the orange side. Now you don't want to keep your blinders on because sometimes I'll be extreme about it. Sometimes there will be a part of the photo that you don't expect to have that color in it, and it can look artificial or cause fringing or give away your editing. So look around. Sometimes I'll go to the extreme. I'll go all the way to the other end of the slider just so I can see what's going on and make sure I'm not damaging my photo in any way. And with the greens, I'm going to bump up the luminance just a bit to make them pop and move the hue so that they're just a bit richer. All right. So we played with some colors. Now I'm going to get a little more picky because I want to warm up this picture, the temperature of the picture, but I don't want the water to turn like orange. That looks really bizarre. So I'll bump up the overall temperature just a bit. And then I'm going to select my adjustment brush so that I can kind of fade in those warm tones. So the effect that I want to use is temp. And I'll use my right bracket to make my brush big. And I want the flow all the way up. And if you press O, then you can see your mask. Just select your whole picture. This is fun. Okay. So I'll press O again to get rid of the mask, and I'm going to bump up my temperature to where I want it. That looks pretty good, but as you can see, the water is still a bit warm. So I'm going to press O so I can see my mask again, and I'm going to press down Alt, and that will bring up my erase tool here. And I want the flow down to about 20 to 30. And I'm just going to take some of those warm tones out of the water. You don't want it too cool either because that will look unnatural. So let's press O and make sure it's not too cool. I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing that I want to do is selectively, let me press New for a new brush. I want to selectively bring down the highlights. So let's use the highlights brush, and it thinks I want to bring them up, so let me move that down. I'm going to press O for my mask and use my left bracket to make my brush smaller. And select the water. And I'm bringing down the highlights because the water's a bit blown out, and this is going to add just a bit more detail back in, make it pop. If you run into a spot like this where your brush is too big, you can use your left or right bracket to make it larger or smaller. And then I will press O to hide my mask. And let me see. So this is where my highlights were. And I don't want them too low because it gets a bit dark. I still like the bright whites in the water. So I'll bring it down just a bit. All right, so I'll press my adjustment brush to leave my adjustment brush. And I just like to just look at it and see what should be changed. Sometimes I'll just walk away from my computer so I can come back and get a fresh look at the picture, because when you're just staring at something and editing it, you can just gradually add more and more edits until it's over-processed. That's bad. So I think the last thing that I want to do is bring more of your focus to this part of the picture by artificially creating a narrower depth of field. And I'm going to do that with my adjustment brush. So again, this opens up a new brush. I'm going to make my brush bigger and press O so you can see the mask. Oh, let's change it to sharpness. I'll get the corners just a little bit, even though that's not really natural. And now if you press Alt, you'll have your erase tool up, and I'm going to put the flow up on my erase tool because I'm going to erase around these rocks here. Everything behind them is going to be out of focus. It's kind of a wall of rocks. So all of the trees will be blurred a bit, and that will bring your attention to the foreground. I'm going to use my brush again, bring the flow down, and then blur some of these things that aren't quite in the same focal plane as the waterfall, but are still in front of these trees here. So you can see like this wouldn't be perfectly in focus. This is a bit behind this focal plane. Okay. Let me turn off my mask. I'll leave my adjustment brush. Okay, so let's see the before and after so you can get an idea of what the blurring effect did. So before, the background is blurred a bit. You can see this isn't quite in focus, but the after picture, it's blurred enough where your attention is really brought to the subject, which is this one part of the waterfall. And I'll press Y to get a side-by-side. Oh, by the way, to get the before and after, I use the backslash key under the backspace key. All right, so let's press Y and get a side-by-side. And you can see I warmed up the picture, which made it look just more inviting and prettier. I brought out some of the detail in the waterfall. I blurred the background and got rid of those splashes. And if you have any other tips for editing a waterfall, you can put them down below and help your fellow editors out. That's it. If you have any suggestions for other videos, you can comment down below as well. We have an entire Lightroom book where we have tons of tips, and I have more videos that are not seen on YouTube. 12 hours of video, in fact. So thank you.